You're roommates with your friends from college who are like 6 years younger than you. It's like babysitting sometimes. I have a lot of friends through streaming that are like a lot of different ages, very wide age range. I have some friends that are pretty young, you know, like young 20s. I have some friends that I've met when they were even younger than that. And, you know, technically still teenagers, even if they were adults. You know, you can be friends with them. It's fine. But I feel like I'm watching them grow up, you know? I'm watching them go through these things and I'm just like, yep, been there, done that. You know, one of my closest friends I actually met because she was pretty young. She was friends with a bunch of streamers that I was friends with. And she was a really good artist, but she was young. So she was taking commissions and you know, she was hanging out in a server. And we, you know, I found out how young she was. She was like 16. And I was like immediately like, if anyone says anything weird to you, you tell me. You know, immediately I was like, I have no problem with people of different ages hanging out with each other so long as they stay safe, right? And I was like, hey, throwing out a line to you here right now. If anyone says anything to you that's a little odd or they treat you like this or that, you tell me, you know? And she was like, okay, salute. You know, so I would just check in on her and make sure she was good. And thankfully she was always good. But, you know, it was just one of those things where we became very close after that, you know, once she was older and older. Like I would commission her as an artist and everything. She was great. And, you know, she's matured well and we are now peers. But, you know, I was just worried. I was like... You never know. I was like, even though I know everyone in the server and I'm pretty sure none of them would do anything crazy, you never know. So just tell me in case, you know? I've done that for a few people. I don't think you have to extricate every minor from every community so long as it's like a safe for work community. You know, there's nothing in there that would be like not okay for them, quote unquote. But you should definitely take extra care to make sure that they're talking to a lot of different people and they're not getting cornered by some weirdo. Make sure they feel comfortable talking to a lot of folks. So that way, if there is something a little off, someone will hear about it. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people online are very afraid to interact with any minors online because they're like, that automatically makes you weird or automatically makes people sus of you or whatever. But I think if people who are good and well-intentioned don't leave that line of communication open to young people in various communities that they're also in, then who are those young people going to go talk to when they have a problem? Or who's going to notice when they have a problem? They might not even notice. But if you're just around them generally here and there, you might clock it first and be like, ooh, don't talk to that person, you know, or whatever. So I think it's really important for people to have eyes on it, at the very least, if you're in a community, you know? There have been a couple situations like that. I did have one friend that, you know, absolutely had a weird thing happen where someone was, you know, approaching them and they thought it might have been okay. And they're like, this person doesn't seem to have bad intent, but I'm not sure. And I was just like, let me see what your DMs look like. You know, I was like, if you're comfortable with that, let me see them. They're like, okay, this is how we message each other. And I was just reading through it and I was like, no. Like my very adult brain, you know, was like, that ain't it. How old is that person? That ain't it. You know? So, and if that person didn't have me to like ask about that, who would have clocked it, right? Like, come on, man. I was very glad I was able to be there. That person didn't do anything, but they were just like, it was off, and that is already over the line, you know. It wasn't it. I firmly believe that I am the way I am. All my positive traits come from the fact that I was like raised by a village, you know. I had my mother who was very present in my life, and that was great. Had my father, same thing. But I also had a lot of family friends, people unrelated who were heavily in my life as adult figures. I had a lot of older family members that were very in my life, and I would tell them things. I didn't have that weird adult-child non-communication kind of relationship. I could tell them anything, you know. And I just think every kid should have that for their own sake. They should. You know, not should as in the world owes them that, but like, you know, they should. If you can provide that for a kid, you should, is what I'm saying. And because of this, I know a lot of weird people. I've gotten to do a lot of things. I've gotten to do practically everything I ever really wanted to do, even though I was broke, because we knew someone who would take me out to do X thing, you know, or whatever. I got a lot of opportunities through it as well. So I just think that's like really important, man. My neighbors growing up are super close with. I could just go to their house anytime. If I had a moment where, you know, one of my brothers was pissing me off and I didn't even want to be in the same house, I was just pissed. I would go outside, I'd walk down one door and I'd go in that next door. And I'd be in someone else's house and I'd be in a neighbor's house and I'd be like, hey, yeah, my brother's pissing me off. And they'd be like, oh, what's going on? You know, and I'd start like telling them about it and they'd be like, you want ice cream? And I'd be like, yeah. And that was, you know, the Jamaican family friends who feed you. One of the adults who practically raised me outside of my parents was one of my best friend's moms, you know, who lived very close by and I could just walk over there. And, you know, it's a Jamaican family and I would go there and get fed. And I would go there and get fed. I wouldn't want that. I would just go over there and be like, hey, I want to hang out. And they'd be like, here's all this food. Here's all this stuff to do. And they were just super nice, man. I'd hang out there all the time. You grew up in a sitcom? Yeah, it was nice. I had a lot of my neighbors were always different cultures and things too. So I think that was a big part of my upbringing, right? Is like every door down the block, every single door, the family was a completely different ethnicity and usually like original nationality. A lot of them were immigrants. So, you know, a lot of those people like spoke English, but had their quirks or, you know, kind of couldn't speak English in some ways, the adults at least. And it forced me to like learn to adapt to those kinds of things and learn to communicate via charades and you know, and it's good. It's a good experience. I think every kid should be able to do that. But if you're like, no, don't talk to your neighbor. We don't know them like that. You know, it just sucks. Have you been to a Latino gathering? You don't need to even ask. I've been to everything. We had one set of neighbors that were Cuban and they would do the whole pig roast, but thing is, like, we didn't have backyards, we didn't have grass, stuff like that. It was all concrete, you know? So what we would do is, actually a couple of the different neighbors would do this. So there were stone bricks and things at the edge of the curb or in front of people's houses. And we would pull up the free floating bricks that were either against the curb or in front of houses, pull them out of the ground and make a little oven shape with them and then cook and then put them back when we were done. So we would do this on like the sidewalk. And we would do it all the time, and we would just like grab the bricks all the way up from people's garden beds and stuff, and set up like a giant oven, and then that family would do a pig roast, and then everyone on the block would, you know, be eating good, and then we'd put it right back when it was done. You know, it was great.